Hi, everybody. Welcome to Story Time. Today we are going to be reading Cinderella. It's a classic fairy tale. And we were just talking about in class how fairy tales are stories that often involve magic, and they usually have elements of the story like some characters, animals maybe that can talk, or objects that can talk or do things like humans that can't happen in real life, right? So we're going to look out for all of those things today as we read Cinderella. Now, we also talked about today characters, setting, and the plot. So let's review very quickly. The characters of a story are the people or the animals in a story. And the main character is the most important character that the story is about, okay? Now, we also have setting. The setting of the story is where and when the story takes place. So we're going to listen for that. And then we have the plot. The plot is what happens in the story. Sometimes there's a problem. What is the solution? Okay, so without further ado, let's get to the story. Cinderella's story. Once upon a time, there was a kind girl named Cinderella. All of the animals loved her, especially two mice named Gus and Jacques. They'd do anything for the girl they'd called Cinderella. Cinderella lived with her stepmother and her two stepsisters, Anastasia and Drizella. They were very mean to Cinderella, making her work all day, cleaning, sewing, and cooking. She tried her best to make them happy. Cinderella's stepmother, Lady Tremaine, was cold, cruel, and jealous of Cinderella's charm and beauty. She enjoyed giving Cinderella extra chores to do, such as bathing her cat, Lucifer. One day, a messenger arrived with a special invitation. There was going to be a royal ball at the palace. The king wanted his son to find a bride. Every young woman in the kingdom was invited, including Cinderella. Cinderella was very excited about the ball. In the attic, she found a dress that had belonged to her mother. It was a bit old-fashioned, but Cinderella could make it beautiful. Lady Tremaine didn't want Cinderella to go to the ball. She wanted the prince to meet Anastasia and Drizella. Maybe he would marry one of them. Lady Tremaine kept Cinderella busy with chores that would take her all night to finish. While Cinderella was working, the mice and birds fixed her dress. They added ribbons and beads that the two stepsisters had thrown away. Working together, the animals turned a simple dress into a fabulous gown. Cinderella was overjoyed when she saw the dress. Now she could go to the ball. "Oh, thank you so much," Cinderella said to Gus, Jacques, and the birds. When the stepsisters saw their old ribbons and beads on Cinderella's dress, they flew into a rage. They ripped the dress and pulled off the beads. Lady Tremaine didn't stop them. Cinderella's dream of going to the ball was through. Cinderella ran away to the garden to cry. Suddenly, her fairy godmother appeared. With a wave of her wand, she turned a pumpkin into an elegant coach. Cinderella could now go to the ball, but her dress was still ruined. "Bibbidi-bobbidi-boo," said the fairy godmother, waving her wand again. Cinderella was now wearing a beautiful gown with sparkling glass slippers. But all of this came with a warning. When the clock struck midnight, the magic spell would wear off. At the ball, Prince Charming couldn't take his eyes off Cinderella. The orchestra played, and the prince began to dance with the wonderful girl whose name he still didn't know. For Cinderella, the night was a dream come true. Before too long, the clock began to strike midnight. "Goodbye," Cinderella said, hurrying away. "Come back," called the prince. "I don't even know your name." As Cinderella fled, one of her glass slippers came off. The prince sent the Grand Duke to find the girl who fit the glass slipper. Lady Tremaine locked Cinderella in the attic, but Cinderella's mouse friends freed her. Then Lady Tremaine tripped the Grand Duke and the glass slipper shattered. But Cinderella had the other in her pocket, and it fit. Cinderella and the prince were soon married. Everyone rejoiced, including Cinderella's mouse friends, who wore special outfits to the wedding. Filled with joy, Prince Charming and Cinderella lived happily ever after. The end. All right, everybody. So what did you think about Cinderella, our first fairy tale? What characters did you meet? Well, first we had Cinderella, right? She was in rags. Now, she was the main character of the story, right? The main character means that they're the most important one, or the one that the story is about. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Next, we had the evil stepsisters, right? Did you like them? Mm-mm. Then we had the stepmother. I didn't like her very much either, did you? It's not nice to say you don't like people, but she was really mean, right? Cinderella was so nice, and they really just weren't. They were very selfish. Then we had the fairy godmother. Everybody has to love her, right? She changed Cinderella's life. And then we had the prince, and he also changed her life. Now, character change or growth or development is a very important part of reading and books, because usually in a book, something about the main character changes, okay? And it doesn't have to be only the main character, but usually something about them changes. And if it's not them, they're teaching somebody else a way to change that helps them be a better person, okay? So in Cinderella, in the beginning, Cinderella was, she was always in rags. The poor girl, she had to do so much work. Nobody treated her fairly. Nobody really showed her any respect or love, right? And she was always so tired and worn out and overworked. Well, what changed? She was given an opportunity. And you know what I love about Cinderella? She wasn't afraid to try something new. And because she tried something new, she had a really big, great change in her life that improved her life forever. She found love. She was then treated with respect. And then we have the changed Cinderella, right? Because she always stayed true to herself. Even when some other characters in the story, like these three characters, the stepsisters and the stepmom, even when these three were mean to her and they didn't show her any respect, right? Back in the beginning, she always remained who she was. She stayed sweet and warm and kind. And because she did, she didn't let these evil, not nice traits affect her. She stayed like a really good person, no matter how these other three were treating her. And because of that, she deserved for the fairy godmother to come in and say, you know what, girl, you deserve a chance. And she helped her out. And because she helped her out, she was given yet another chance. And the prince fell in love with her, right? And because she remained who she was, and she was such a nice, warm person, when she met the prince, that's still who she was. Because do you think if the prince met one of these three, which he did, do you think he would have fallen in love with them? No, they weren't very nice. But she didn't let other people change who she was. And she stayed really nice. And because of that, when she met the prince, they fell in love and they lived happily ever after, right? So I really admire Cinderella. I admired her for being a hard worker, and I admired her for being humble and for always being kind no matter how other people were treating her. And because of all of those great qualities, she got what she most deserved in life, which was love, right? So I hope you all enjoyed the story, and we will talk a little bit more about the story tomorrow. I will see you then. Bye-bye.